Am I the asshole for requesting a doctor that is more fluent in my language? Important background info: I'm autistic and have ADHD. Due to this, I have some problems with auditory processing, aka I hear just fine, but sometimes my brain just refuses to process the information. It feels like you're being spoken to in a language that you didn't speak. My APD, auditory processing disorder, acts up more with certain ways of speaking. For example, stuttering or unusual speaking rhythms are very hard for me to understand. The problem arose when I got a new psychiatrist. He's not native to my country, which I don't have a problem with, but he doesn't speak my native language very well. I've seen him once now, and it was a disaster. I understood maybe half of what he was saying. My brain just short-circuited, and the whole time I felt like I was an idiot asking, "Sorry, could you repeat slower? And could I get that in writing?" the whole hour. We got nothing done, and it left me almost crying and having trouble speaking myself. ASD messing with my whole language processing. I went straight to the receptionist and I told the lady I would like to request a new doctor. She asked me why, and I told her that I couldn't understand the one that I'd been given. She checks my info and just huffs. She, in a very cold tone, says, "I can understand him just fine. We don't let patients pick their doctors on racial bias." I am just shocked. I didn't even consider him being not white. This is a very white country, I might add. I already am really anxious, so I start crying and say that I just can't continue seeing him over and over again. People are looking at us, I can't help it, and the lady is getting more annoyed with me. She says there's nothing she can do for me, and that it's a very big asshole move of me to make such a scene, and that she won't be helping me anymore. She didn't use those words, but I can't remember exactly what she said. I went to the bathroom to finish crying, and I called my mum. She agreed that I should get transferred to another doctor, but that it's my fault for not being clear on my reasons. I later got an email from my doctor that he is sad that I feel like I can't work with someone like him, but at this moment, I could not be transferred. He expressed that I had hurt him and that I was in the wrong. Now I'm wondering if I really am the arsehole. In the comments, not the arsehole. For something like psychiatry, it is very important for doctor and client to be able to communicate clearly. Doubly so in your case because of your condition. In the United States, the magic words for your request are, "I have a disability that makes it difficult for me to understand certain kinds of spoken language. I would like to request a reasonable accommodation for that disability." This right here. Don't let the receptionist shame you for being an advocate for yourself. With any condition, it's important to feel comfortable with your doctor and to be able to comfortably communicate. I can understand maybe why the receptionist might have jumped to the racial thing, but it wasn't her place to just call you out like that with no information. It wasn't racially motivated, and she just jumped straight to that and spurted it out in public. Again, please don't let others make you feel guilty or shamed for advocating for your own health. No assholes here, but you should have been clear when you asked to switch. It would have absolutely sounded to this woman like race was a factor, and you did nothing to contradict that. A simple, "I have APD and require a doctor who has as little an accent as possible," would have made things clearer. It's not this lady's fault for assuming the most obvious thing. OP says, "After I calmed down, I thought about this, and my mum said this as well, but I can't help feeling like she was unreasonably mean to me. I was already visibly upset and almost crying when I went to the reception, and what I said, if translated more like word to word, was, 'I cannot understand my doctor's way of speaking. I don't think I was being rude, but I can't be sure, as I'm not good at recognizing those kinds of tones, etc. I'll probably email my doctor to explain, since he's a specialist in my conditions, and will maybe understand better." Blue Jay Fisher replies, "I think the biggest issue for you here is that you went to speak to the receptionist already upset. If all the receptionist had to do was insinuate there was a racist motive for you to start crying and become unable to have a conversation, then you were too upset to be having that conversation at that time. Next time something like this happens, I would really suggest taking the time to calm down and to ground yourself before having to have a difficult conversation." I can't be mad at the receptionist. In this situation, 9 times out of 10, the person is just racist. Complaining about accents goes up exponentially when the person isn't white, in case you don't know. That is a common thing. So I can't blame her for assuming that, especially considering that you are unable to refute it. Emailing the doctor is a good idea. You'll be able to explain about your APD more clearly, and he should understand. Best of luck for getting a new doctor. And OP replies, I think I understand her point of view better now. In the moment, I couldn't think clearly and just wanted to have a new doctor so that I wouldn't need to experience this again. A lot went wrong with this on my side as well. I probably should have disclosed my autism so that she would have understood me better. I still felt really bad after the whole thing, as I didn't understand at all why things happened the way they did. Also, her suggestion of racial bias wasn't what made me cry, it was the denial of my request. It's hard to explain, but sometimes my emotions are a little too big for the situation, so her no became, you are stuck with this doctor, and every time I need new meds, etc., I will have to go through this again, and I can't do it. Which was the last straw in that moment. I don't really know anything about how usual that kind of racism is. As said, my country is extremely white, so it's probably bad, but something like that didn't really cross my mind before this. If it is usual for such a thing to happen, then I get her reaction a little better. Yeah, I'm gonna go with no assholes here in this situation. I think it's just a complete series of unfortunate events. A lot of it, in my point of view, my opinion, coming down to OP's disability and lack of experience in situations like this, which just compounds the emotion, as we saw. Not to say that OP is a bad person. I don't think they did anything particularly wrong. I think they did what they could with the tools they had at their disposal, and it's fair enough that the receptionist and the doctor thought that she was just being racist. I'm on their side for that one as well. If I was them, I would think the same. And I would think that OP coming to me was just making thinly veiled excuses not to see a non-white doctor. Completely understand where they're coming from there. I do think OP should take all of the advice that they've gotten in this thread and work with their parents as well, who would help, condense that information and make it easier for the doctor and the receptionist to understand and fix this mess, because I can't imagine this gets any better for OP if this situation doesn't get resolved swiftly. And now, on to the update. I must start with thanking everyone for commenting. It made me feel so much better that the people here had the patience to explain what might have gone wrong and give advice, as I really had a hard time figuring the whole thing out. I emailed my doctor the next day and explained the situation. In short, I told him how my APD makes it hard for me to understand him and that I was really overwhelmed after my visit, so I couldn't explain myself properly. I also expressed that it made me feel awful that I had been put in that position and that his feelings had also been hurt as a result. Luckily, the doctor was really understanding in his reply and apologized on behalf of himself and the receptionist. He then went on to agree that my reasons are indeed valid and that we were not a good patient-doctor match. He said he will work everything out and apologized once more. I'm glad to say that everything was resolved, and I even received an apology card from the receptionist. And my new doctor is a very nice lady whom understands me and my problems extremely well. I decided not to escalate, as everything worked out in the end, and all offending sides were sincerely sorry. Thanks to everyone who commented and helped me figure this out. In the comments, Benomly says, I'm so glad to hear that things worked out. I didn't see your original post when you first posted it, but reading it now, I could feel your pain coming through your words. It does sound like it was just a horrible misunderstanding, and I'm glad your new therapist is someone who understands you. Best of luck to you in the future. OP says, thank you. It really was just a huge misunderstanding all around. Even worse than the usual misunderstandings that happen with me. That's awesome that everyone was able to get each side of their situation taken care of. I know I usually get pretty frazzled and would shut down in face-to-face interactions, which is why I prefer text. I'm so glad that all of you were able to work it out and get the help you need. Everyday misunderstandings happen all the time, so it's rare that each person gets to own up to their own mistakes or misunderstanding, and better yet, move forward and resolve the situation. Kudos to you all. Accidents happen, man, especially when you first meet someone. I had an advanced maths teacher from years 8 to 10. Awesome lady, she could explain a single maths concept in multiple ways so that everyone was guaranteed to understand it. She was very kind and patient too. When I first met her, I could not understand what she was saying. She grew up in India and her native language was Hindi, but she was fluent in English. I felt so bad that I couldn't understand her. Fortunately, after having her class for a couple of weeks, I could understand her perfectly. The more you talk and listen to the person with the accent, the better you will understand them until it's like the accent is not there. I can totally understand why you asked to change doctors, as you likely will not see them often enough to grow used to the accent. OP replies, "Sometimes I get used to a way of speaking after a while, but usually my brain doesn't work like that. I have trouble with certain patterns of speech that, coupled with accents, make it very hard for me to understand. It's not something my brain learns by itself and gets used to. I can compensate in other ways, i.e. support signs, written communication, but it takes time and effort that would have been away from discussing my actual treatment." The accent part is very true and could lead to very dangerous outcomes in the medical field. One of my aunts is a pediatrician overseas. She studied at the home country her entire life, but understood English enough to land her a spot in the United Arab Emirates. When she got there, almost every other personnel she worked with had a deep accent, requiring almost every important communication to be in writing, since they've already had a history of charting wrong diagnoses. It slowed the hospital a lot, but it was better than picking the wrong leg to cut off in surgery. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think taking your time with these things, even if it does slow down the hospital and cost the hospital money, probably better than a lawsuit for cutting off the wrong leg. And in OP's case, I think it was very good that things got solved amicably, quickly, and peacefully, like they were in this story. Thank you for the update, OP. Very glad to hear that you were able to solve everything and not have a repeat of that first story's situation. Our next post is by user Crystal Cleric, and it's titled, "My 25 female, boyfriend 26 male of 1 year just told me that he wants me to pay him a rental fee for borrowing his car to visit my family. Am I wrong to be upset? Ordinarily, this wouldn't be a problem. I would just take my car, but it's being fixed right now. This meant that in order for me to drive to see my family for Thanksgiving, I would either have to rent a car or borrow someone's. Since my boyfriend was flying out to California for Thanksgiving and wouldn't be using his, I asked him if he would mind if I borrowed it. He told me that of course I could borrow his car. Nothing else was said about it until today, other than some minor things. I texted him to thank him again for helping me. The way I worded things apparently made it clear to him that I was only planning to cover the gas that I used, and he told me that he expected me to pay him a reasonable fee for using the car. Reasonable to him is $50 a day plus replacing the gas I use. So the visit will cost me at least $250 in addition to whatever the gas costs. It is his car, so I don't think I can really argue with him about this. I do understand in principle. I don't think being his girlfriend entitles me to use his stuff whenever I want, but I'm hurt that he's being so stingy. We've been together for a year, it's the holidays, and my only other option was renting a car through a private company. I guess I would have hoped that he would have been more sympathetic, but maybe he has a right to expect that he be paid for the use of his car. I don't know. I very rarely ask for any favors and cover all of my expenses myself, so he can't say that I'm using him or exploiting him financially. This has never come up before, so I've been taken off guard. Maybe I am being too sensitive. In the comments, Lonnie Lee says, if he said you could borrow his car and now he's saying you can rent his car, he's changing the deal midstream and it's sort of weird. Personally, I'd conclude that he doesn't really want me to use his car for that period of time and I'd rent one from a private company. He should have just told you up front that he didn't want you to use his car. OP replies, I even checked with him a few times to make sure that it was fine. At no point did he mention that he wanted me to pay him. Banana Skin says, that seems ridiculous in my honest opinion, and I'd be pissed if someone asked the same of me. Well, if my significant other or a close friend asked it, I don't really get his motive. Is he trying to make money off of his girlfriend just because he could? I don't see why, if you're paying for gas and obviously covering anything else that you personally do to the car, like if God forbid you got into an accident or spilled coffee on the seats or something, he needs some kind of additional fee. Your relationship isn't a business. This situation seems like some bullshit. You could try talking to him more about it, or you could refuse to pay the fee, saying, I thought you were joking. Or you could rent from an actual company and incur the costs, but avoid this weird power play. OP says, he's not one to joke, so I have no doubt he really is being serious. I would be interested to know why he wants me to pay. I'm not sure what he really gains unless he thinks this will discourage me from borrowing his property. Banana Skin replies, well, maybe if you've lost or damaged his property before, or are irresponsible with stuff. I don't mean any offense to you, but that's the only thing I can think of without knowing more details. He sounds like a tool. OP says, nothing like that has happened before. When asked what if her boyfriend makes other demands, OP says, if we do go out, we usually have to plan it around his sports team's schedule. He also refuses to do anything that he thinks is a waste of money. No vacations, movie dates, bowling, etc. I completely understand what type of person he is. I was going to say what type of guy he is, but I understand that women are also like this as well. And as much as I support women's rights, I also understand women's wrongs. Okay, guys? Let's just put that out there. I haven't dated someone like this, but my mom has, so I understand after a while how much this mentality wears on a person, because I wouldn't hear the end of it myself. There is so much frustration, anger, and resentment that builds up when someone refuses to do something because they think it's a waste of money. Or in this case, you go out to coffee and you don't order 2 coffees and 2 little snacks. No. Let's just have the 1 coffee and we'll share that and we'll split the snack. It's just better economically. Oh my God. Yeah, I understand that. From my point of view, where I'm standing, I see that person that is very skint and does not like to spend their money like that as a bit of a tool. Just being brutally honest with you there, guys. And that mindset, if allowed to continue in the state that it's in, with no, concessions made, no compromises at all to find a reasonable middle ground, that will just sink the ship. Sooner or later, someone cracks. This is OP's first big run-in with it. Not to say that the no vacations, movie dates, or bowlings weren't run-ins. Those were more like minor ones that you can kind of be like, well, I've been dating them for a few months now. It is a bit weird, I understand that, but I can get over it for now and we'll do those things in the future when money isn't as much of an issue for this person. But now, if I were OP, I'd be very much questioning what the hell's going on with the car and why you're charging me $50 a day when we're dating. Me personally, I wouldn't charge my girlfriend $50 a day. I would probably even cover the petrol. Now, if I look at it from his point of view, there are a few possibilities as to why he is doing what he is doing and what his thought processes are. To me, the most likely one is that they are someone that is incredibly money hungry. I don't know if that's the word, just economically minded. And that they themselves do not think that their actions are a problem, and in order to get ahead in life and get a big net worth and feel financially stable, you have to make sacrifices like this, and you have to make sure that you're not doing things that are economically inefficient, like letting your girlfriend use your car and running up the mileage, increasing the wear and tear, making use of your insurance that you pay for. There has to be some give and take in that situation. It only makes sense. To me, this comes down to a fundamental incompatibility between the two, and in my point of view, it's not to say that everyone is like this. The person who is money hungry like that will not be the one to change. They will not be flexible in that regard. I personally do not see this relationship lasting. And no, you are not wrong to be upset. And now, onto the update. Hey everyone, I know a lot of you have been wanting an update. I meant to post one a few days ago, but things have been really busy lately. I didn't want to ruin my Thanksgiving holiday thinking about the car situation, so I decided to wait until I got back to discuss it with my boyfriend. I was really hoping that this was all just a misunderstanding, but unfortunately it was not. When I brought up the rental payment, my boyfriend said that he thought that it was only fair that I compensate him for the use of his car. He asked me if I had a problem with that, and I told him that I did. I mentioned what some of you said about how I could have rented a car for less if I had known he was going to charge me, and I also told him how I felt like he had taken advantage of me by only mentioning the fee after I had taken his car. One thing that one of you mentioned was that maybe someone had suggested it to him. I asked him about that, and he said that no one had said anything. He just figured that it would only be fair for me to pay for the use of his car. I did at least get him to see that the price he charged me was too high, but he didn't think he was wrong about the fee. We ended up having a larger conversation about how tight he is with money and some other things that I mentioned in my first post. I didn't intend to break up with him, but after he still insisted on the rental payment, I just realized that he wasn't someone I wanted to be with. I did end up paying him, but it was $100 instead of $250. So that's the update. He has apologized and asked me to take him back, but I don't think I'm interested anymore. Thank you for your help, everyone. In the comments, Opie explains her ex being tight with money. Nothing to a point. I am perfectly able to, and always have, split everything with him, but even if I pay my way, he would still refuse to do almost anything that costed money. I don't need to always go out and do things, but even 3 to 4 times a month was too much. We're not even talking about a nice restaurant or an expensive trip. We're talking can't go to Chili's or go to bowling because it's too expensive. Zwixik says, in the long run, $100 is a cheap price to pay to find out someone's an asshole. Imagine being married to someone like that. He probably would have charged you for hours spent wedding planning. This reminds me of that one storyline in the Joy Luck Club. The husband insists on dividing everything by their fair share. Just nickel and dimes his wife over everything, down to the scoops of ice cream if I remember correctly. So petty and gross, but great movie. That was one of the parts in the movie that made me cry. My now ex-husband would post the receipts for things he paid for until I paid him back. Things like diapers for our baby daughter, oil change on my car, and one time, the daycare fee for the week. He taped the receipts to a piece of paper titled Loans to Wife's Name and put it on the refrigerator. The page of receipts sure came in handy in court. Gwynassin says, struggling to think of what his end goal was. So you get $250 out of your girlfriend? So what? You apparently knew that it was going to be somewhat controversial with her because you didn't mention it until the last minute when she couldn't look for rentals. How do you not assume some level of blowback, if not being broken up with, like what happened? And how do you double, triple, quadruple, quintuple down at every opportunity that she gives you to rethink your stance to make sure she breaks up with you? Some people's minds are so foreign to me they may as well be from another species. She was too expensive. Wife demands for 5-star meals at Chili's. And the occasional movie night. He has his $100 to keep him warm now, and no one will ever force him to go out and do anything ever again. I really want to keep using examples from my mum's experiences in this field, but I won't. Because a lot of what I'm reading here, it tracks. And there are other things this leads to as well. If you continue these relationships where you're like, Jesus Christ, that is a really unsustainable ask. What the hell, man? But anyway, I'm glad they broke up. His $100 to keep him warm, God bless his soul, I hope he cherishes that one. Because obviously, she was too expensive to be taking out on movie nights, going to luxurious restaurants like Chili's. Oh my God, can you imagine the scenes if he had sacrificed his gigantic hoard of wealth for such monumental experiences to share with your loving, greedy guts girlfriend. Who does she think she is, demanding all of this money from him and demanding to use his car for free? God, OP, you are such an asshole for doing that. You are the scum of the earth, mate. I don't know. I think this was inevitable, wasn't it? Like, is there anyone that seriously can say in the comments below, let me know if you do, that there was actually a possibility of this relationship being salvaged, him seeing the light and being a normal person? I just don't see it. I think some people get to an age where they become so deep and dug into their ways that they're just not going to be any different to that. Ever. No matter what you do, no matter what you say. They just need to find someone that aligns with them, and then they will have that happy marriage that they're looking for. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. I love to yap. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Thank you, OP, for the story, and thank you for the update. Anyway, guys, that's where I'm going to end today's episode. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.